Hey everyone, Rob Cairns here with the SDM Show. In today's episode, I sit down with my good friend Owen Greaves, who owns a web hosting company by the name of Billy Host, and he, I should tell you, is my web host now, and we talk about web security and server security. So sit down, relax, and enjoy this really technical discussion with Owen and I. There we go. Hey all, Rob Cairns here. I'm here with my friend Mr. Owen Greaves, another fellow Canadian, and we're going to talk about website and WordPress security. How are you today, Owen?
I'm just fine. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. You and I have known each other. I don't know, I've stopped taking count for a long, long time, even before Twitter and social media days, haven't we? So,
It's been a while. Yeah, been
it's,
years.
it's been years. So Owen runs a web hosting company called Billy Host. I'll preface it that way. He is my host at this point in time. Reasons to be nowned all over Facebook. So if you want to, I'm not going to drudge it up, but if you want to go find out why, go look at my Facebook page. And I thought we'd talk to Owen today and talk a little bit about server security, WordPress security, maybe some PHP security for the nerds out there. And let's start with PHP because there's a subject I really like. PHP 8 is now dropped. I know I'm working for an employer that's in the process of upgrading to PHP 7.4, and they're having all kinds of problems with stuff breaking. That's the nature of PHP. What do you see with PHP 8 and security on, if anything?
Well, from a security standpoint, I really haven't studied up much on PHP, but it's obviously going to be better than 7.4 or 7.3, 7.2.
Yeah.
But a lot of the third-party software companies haven't caught up yet. So they're trying to implement PHP 8.0 is going to break stuff. It's just going to, because most of the software developers haven't upgraded. They just got 7.4 to work properly. And so now 8.0 comes along and they go, oh, we need to upgrade. Well, no, I don't think you should do that just yet. You should probably wait a little bit until the software that you're trying to run, especially on the server environment, actually is supported by 8.0. Otherwise, you're just breaking.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The folks up at WordFence did a really good office hours, not today, not this week, not last week, the week before. And what they talked about was the changing ecosystem in WordPress with 5.7 around the corner and and 5.6 and PHP 8. So if anybody's interested, you might want to go look at that talk. So let's jump on to server security. You have a couple managed, several managed web servers. Are you doing anything special without giving away anything that you shouldn't on the security side?
No, there's just a lot of standard stuff, best practices that take place. When you buy or lease servers, no matter what your business opportunity is that you're trying to launch, if you're buying managed servers, security is not something you have to know about. You have to understand you need it, but you don't need to know how it works and how to do it. But you do need to be able to ask the questions and say, is this in place? Is that in place? Otherwise you're just dropping to your knees and, cut my throat, trusting that the data center is doing everything that you expect them to do. And sometimes, stuff gets missed, falls through the cracks. But security on the server side, for me, is Linux. It's not Windows. I haven't used Windows in years. I'm using Windows on this machine for this particular interview, but other than that, and I only use this box for playing my NHL 09.
Yeah.
Right. But as far as the security on a server goes, like it first starts off with the operating system.
Mhm.
You lock it down there, and then whatever you're running on top of that, whether it's WHM, cPanel, or Plesk, or whatever,
Yeah.
All that stuff has to be locked down. So I hire and pay for managed servers, so I don't have to physically do that. I don't have to physically administer the server. I can if I want to, but I have more important things to do than to worry about whether or not something got upgraded or not. I just, I check to see what the updates are and if they got done, and that's all I need to worry about.
Yeah. And we should mention, and we've all been there, some of us more than not. Part of your security solution and part of a managed server environment is also having proper backups, right?
Well, I have a separate server for backups.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to have, if you're running a hosting company, you're either doing VPS, shared, whatever. If you're saving all your backups as a company on the same server as your sites, you're looking for trouble. You're going to get a huge letdown somewhere along the way. So you need a second machine that stores all that stuff, and it's tucked away. Nobody can reach it. It's the same thing with billing software. You put it somewhere where nobody can get to it. So you just make sure you've got the infrastructure in place, like say an email server, backup server, you've got your hosting servers, you've got all these other variables that you want to put in place and make sure that you're delivering not necessarily the fastest service in the world, but you want it to be efficient, effective, and as long as people aren't complaining, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it really is a good thing. I mean, we all know what happens in the hosting world when a hosting company goes south. Facebook lights up like a drum, Twitter lights up like a drum, right?
Rob loses his mind.
Yeah, well, yeah, I have lately, but that's besides the point. Okay, so we talked about that a little bit. Website security, and subject that is dear to my heart. I spend a lot of time on. Simple little things like, guys, let's not use admin as a username. Some people still like to do that. I come across that all the time.
Well, that's the do-it-yourselfer that's doing that, right? Like the person that's doing that doesn't know. They're just going, I want to build a WordPress site. So what they do is they drop their one click install and away they go. And unfortunately, that doesn't fly anymore. You have to have a little bit of wherewithal to go, if I'm going to set something up and I know that the admin at whatever password, there's bots out there 24/7 trying to figure out your username. And if it's admin, you just save them a lot of time.
Yeah.
And before you know it, they're going to have you. Obviously 18 character passwords are better than 12.
Yeah.
It takes them longer to get there.
It does, and random passwords are better. It's funny because I use a password manager and tools, and I cannot tell you any of the passwords to my website if I don't go in those tools or that password manager anymore. That bad. I mean, I use scrambled passwords. There's the toolkit on the cPanel you provide. I also have a main WP account. So between the two of them, I'm kind of like all over the place, and I really don't remember website passwords anymore. It's that bad.
Passwords are they're a hot button as well. Like a lot of web hosting companies they'll let you have an easy password.
Yeah.
And you're going to get hacked. It's just going to happen. It baffles me. My servers, I don't allow you to have an easy password.
No, I know you don't.
You have to have a good, difficult password. So you need those tools to remember all those passwords.
Yeah, and people need to start thinking about things like two-factor authentication as well, especially to log into cPanel accounts and other things. That makes things a lot easier and more secure.
I get you. For me personally, I find the two-factor really frustrating because let's say it's got to go to your phone or wherever to send you that particular
Yep.
passcode. And sometimes you need to move faster than that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't wait. You have to, you got to get in.
I
Boom.
understand. Yeah.
In terms of, like everybody now is really WordPress driven. Like everybody wants a WordPress site. Nobody's building HTML websites anymore, or just straight pure PHP websites anymore. Pure PHP is a lot more secure, obviously, but everybody wants WordPress. So then, there's a whole pile of security questions around that.
Yeah.
And cPanel has just made it easier for people to look after their WordPress sites with the toolkit, WordPress Toolkit Deluxe, I should say. And there's a one-click security button in that thing, and it will list off a whole pile of recommendations on things that you might want to consider to securing your WordPress install, which normally you would have no clue.
Yeah, and I'm not, we talk about that, and I'm not a big fan of what I call fluff. So one of the things a lot of people like to do is change the backend URL, for example, to log into WordPress. I'm personally not a big fan of that. I will do it, but it's not my favorite. The other thing people like to do is change the database prefixes. But I consider stuff like that fluff changes, because if somebody's going to break in, they're going to find those pretty quickly anyway, especially if they have your FTP password and go in that way.
Right. And to me, those are kind of first level security 101 things.
Yep.
There are other things like restricting access to files and directories,
yep.
configuring security keys.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you can change that prefix. It's one way, but again, that's just letters. It could be numbers, it could be anything. But you could also secure up forbidden execution of PHP scripts in the WP includes directory. In the WP content uploads directory, you can stop PHP scripts from running there. You can turn off pingbacks. You can turn off hot linking, turn it on for hot link protection. You can disable file editing WordPress dashboard for that matter if you wanted to.
And not that I don't trust my host, but my response too is, if you're going to do backups and get your host to do it, and I don't care who the host is, you should probably be doing backups yourself as well and do both. And the reason I stress that is there's been several hosts in Europe and even in Australia that have actually had, believe it or not, their backup server taken out by a hacker at the same time they took out the primary server. I've seen that happen.
Anything can happen, though. Like, I agree with you. I think if you're any kind of a technology person of any sort, or you really need to take responsibility for your site, even if you don't know how.
Yep.
You should either hire somebody or talk to somebody that understands it to walk you through it. But doing your own backups is critical. That's why a lot of these panels, cPanel, for example, they have backup wizards. You can back up your entire home directory or just your databases or just your website. And then you can download them and put them onto a disk or a stick or another computer so that you've got a copy of it. And you should have what I call a scheduled routine of backing up your stuff. I back up my laptop every month.
Yeah.
Just in case it crashes.
I agree. I back mine up more than everyone. So yeah. I'm with you on that one as well, actually. So, you got to, and you kind of got to look at sites and say, what can I afford to lose? If you're posting a blog a week, maybe you do the backup once a week. I know with my clients, I'm now at the point where I keep 3 months of backups offline twice a week now, because I think the security landscape is getting so tough, and these are sites that are changing like every day. So, you got
the hackers are getting smarter too. They're not getting dumber.
Yeah.
They're figuring out new ways of getting your information.
Yeah. If you want to find some fun way, what I'd say to somebody is create a a phony account, go to Discord and spend time in the hackers groups and read what they're posting. Because they're
Discord is a fabulous tool. It's better than Slack will ever be, in my humble opinion.
oh, me too. I'm so there. I am so not a Slack guy, so I get that.
I'm part of a DevOps group and in Discord, and boy, I'll tell you what. You want to talk about discussing security and containers and all that stuff. It's a really cool place.
So the other problem with security is, and I've run across this way too many times in my career, somebody calls you up and says they've been hacked. And the first thing I say to them is, A, what's your ID and password? And B, when was the last time you updated the software on your site? So there's always this discussion with WordPress core updates that a lot of people like to sit back and sort of say the WordPress core updates, maybe we shouldn't do them. And I'll give you an example. 5.6 came out about a week and a half ago now, 2 weeks ago, right? Yep. And there's a lot of people that are waiting 5.6.1. I personally take the approach that's a mistake. And the reason is the minute 5.6 comes out, it's knowing what security holes they put.
Right.
So then all you have to do is go to a website called buildwith.com, put in the WordPress version, put in the website name. It'll tell you what WordPress version it's running. And if you're running if you're not running 5.6, it's knowing what vulnerabilities to attack.
Right. Yeah, and it's nobody writes 100% pure, perfect software.
Yeah,
haven't seen it, never heard of it.
No,
it's so eventually somebody's going to figure out a way to get in.
Yeah, and that's the problem with waiting. And I understand people being concerned about versioning, but I also understand that people need to be concerned about the security fixes that go out in this stuff. And it's always a feature update plus a security fix usually. So,
well, if with Billyhost, it's in the terms of service. If you do not keep your WordPress install up to date, you're in violation of terms of service. And the boys behind the servers will just automatically update your site to make sure the plugins are up, themes are current, and the core is done. Otherwise, you're looking for trouble. And the way security works in the hosting environment now is every, in my case, every cPanel account is caged. It's in its own little cage. So if somebody breaks into a cage or your site, that's the only place they can go. They can't go anywhere else. It's just play in your little sandbox, which makes it easier to clean up.
Yeah, there's many hosts that don't take that approach. EIG for one, just to throw that wonderful name out there.
Yeah,
and across their brands, and they tend not to, and that's a bit of a problem, to be honest with you, because they don't manage their stuff in a cage.
I can't speak for those companies that don't take the higher road on that. They just, a lot of times it's just about money.
Yeah.
And they're just all they're trying to do is make money because they're cash grab. They're not actually doing the right thing, especially when it comes to security.
Yeah.
I look at there's a couple of big hosting companies out there that are still allowing clients to run PHP 5.2.
Yeah.
Like, really? I know there's a way of securing PHP 5.2 and allowing people to use it, but the optics and the perception of that is not healthy.
No, it's true. And the other problem too is in the WordPress environment, and as you know, is plugins. I mean, one of the reasons plugin updates come out on a regular basis is for more often than not security vulnerabilities. All you got to do is look at either WordFence, iThemes, or WebRx and watch your bulletins on a regular basis. I mean, iThemes has an amazing twice-a-month bulletin they put out there. WordFence puts them out as they come out. WebRx is pretty up there as well. Choose your poison. And you start to look at these plugin vulnerabilities, and like the one that woke everybody up in the last 2 weeks was Contact Form 7. Was all over. And how many millions of installs is that running, right?
It's sometimes, I guess, in defense of these guys making plugins, it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, it
Like
is.
it's just really, really hard to keep up. And if somebody says, "Oh, I like to keep up on everything," that's a really nice idea, but I don't think it's possible.
No, I would agree with you. I think what you need to be more concerned is if the plugin's been abandoned and not been updated in a couple of years. I mean, that would concern me.
Well, and if you're paying attention, in the WordPress plugin repository, it'll say it hasn't been tested on your version of WordPress.
Yeah.
That should be a red flag all by itself.
No question, especially with the changing and everything going on. And I think, from my perspective, between the core and the plugins not being updated, most people that have had hack issues or security issues, that's usually the way in the door.
Plugins are the most common way in. Yeah.
Yeah. And people don't realize it. And I look at sites all the time. I mean, they've all had it. I mean, WP Baker, one of the biggest page builders out there, had a
Yeah.
major vulnerability this summer.
Yeah.
It goes on and it goes on and it goes on. But to be fair, I think the proper way to do security is if you spot the plugin issue, you let the manufacturer know or whoever wrote it. If they don't respond, then you got to declare it. But if they do respond, you got to give them time to patch it too. Like you got to be fair about this.
Well, if security is part of your daily routine, you probably have a checklist, a to-do list of
Yep.
security things that you want to walk through.
I do.
And make sure that, yeah, everything's cool. For myself, like I have to go and check every day to make sure the servers have been updated. I have to make sure I can see everybody's WordPress install from the server end of it. I can tell if somebody's not up to date or not. I can see where all the challenges are. One of the tricky things in the web hosting business is that you'll have somebody who bought hosting from you and then decided that they were going to have their website over on a different host instead of using your server. So they redirect in DNS over there, but they had already put in a WordPress install in their directory, in their home directory.
And they leave it there.
Well, it doesn't get updated because they don't see it. They don't touch it. Their site's over on a different host. And so I see it and I update it whether they need it or not, because one day they're going to have to come back.
Yeah.
And if they cancel that other host, they're going to come back and their site's going to be there, but it's going to be the first version they ever made of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And what they don't understand is having a dormant install, there is still a security risk if it's not updated.
Yeah. And again, in the hosting world, everything is either in cages or jails or so sites are all quarantined, for lack of a better word.
It's a good word.
I should say the industry had to do that because servers were getting killed. If you saw how many times a server gets hit to be compromised, it would just boggle your mind. I have layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of security to stop people from not just hacking the server, but also to prevent people from breaking into cages.
Yeah.
Now, I can't stop you from using an easy user ID and an easy password. Well, indirectly, I can challenge you on the password part, but you can still make it look complicated and still be easy.
Yeah.
But I can't stop that. So if your site gets hacked, it's not because of, the company's servers. It's just not that way. It's not going to happen.
No, it's true. I've helped over the years. So I'll give you an example. I've helped manage a site over the years that's for the Ontario Police Memorial. It's the blog site they use to live stream on. And every year during the ceremony, that the hack attempts on that particular website are somewhere between 60 and 200,000 hack attempts in the 2 hours the ceremony runs.
Oh yeah, it's even WordPress alone. Like as soon as a WordPress script is executed and it's live, it automatically has ping back and set to on. The scripts out there, right out the bots out there, they right away they know that install is brand new and it's right there, so they start hitting it right away, instantly.
Yeah, I know. it's
like there's no waiting; it just happens the second that install happens. It's just executed.
Yeah,
and
I know one case.
that.
I know one case recently where a guy ran a one button install and his site was hacked within minutes of the one button install being run. And it was like, and he's like, really? And I'm like, just delete it and start over. And by the way, when you start over, secure the password and lock it down.
Yeah. And don't use the admin ID.
And don't use the admin ID.
Yeah.
I know in my security stack, and you and I have talked offline, I tend to run WordFence. I tend to run iThemes Security. Now, a lot of people don't like running them in conjunction, but I have found ways to make them work. One of the things I like with WordFence is, especially the paid version, which I run on my own site, they have security firewall rules. Yeah. So beyond the server. So that means if there's a plugin vulnerability out there and it's not patched, they'll put in a rule to toss the plugin.
Right.
What do you think about people running like security software?
Well, it's a software firewall.
Yeah.
Right? Which means it's a layer on top of another layer. So your servers typically don't get compromised. Like it's really hard to do that, and the ones that are, there's something got missed. Like I think that's the simplest way to put it. But when you add another layer of security, you can also complicate things too. You have to understand what it is you're doing. Yes. Otherwise, it's like, I don't know what's the best way to describe it. One of them is not necessary.
Yeah. I mean, really, if you're going to start adding layers, you really should talk to somebody who understands and lives and breathes security and not do it yourself. And I actually believe, and not to try and make sales here, but if you're really serious about your website, maybe you should spend a couple hours on a security consultant and get them to lock it down for you and walk you through what to do. And then maybe you need to say, okay, either I pay my host, I go to a managed WordPress install, or in both cases, and I have a security guy on standpoint, because sites do get hacked, right? I mean,
well, a lot of people, when they're buying web hosting, they're not asking those questions. They're not asking the security questions. Yeah. So for a security-minded person, someone who is in that business, it's just pure business opportunity. Like, so as soon as somebody's site is hacked, who do they contact? They contact the host and they expect them to fix it. Well, it's not the host, it's the hosting company's fault that you used an easy password or ID. Right? So I can't be responsible for that. My responsibility as a hosting company is to make sure that the servers are up and running and your site is up and running.
That's right.
That's it.
And people don't get that. And usually on a shared plan, if one site's compromised, the host will yank the whole plan off and offline too until you fix it.
Sure. But again, on my company's environment, everything is caged. So if somebody gets compromised, nothing else is getting touched. Like it's just that container that is compromised. And it's easy to clean up a container than it is a whole server. That's a whole different set of problems.
Yeah, a big different set of problems.
I would just nuke the server and put up another one. Like I wouldn't even try to clean it. Like that's just how hard it can be.
And you know what? Sometimes with hacks, and I hate to say it on the WordPress side, that's the easiest way around it. If the person's actually kept their backups up to date, is to nuke the site and put up another one too. I hate to say it.
Yeah, if you have a backup, it solves all your problems. It just does. Yeah, especially having a database backup, which is the most critical one, I think, to me, because you can always start over on the design side. But if you've got your database and all your contents in that database, then you're fine.
Yeah, I would agree. The other thing, and it's amazing, people who use secured passwords on their cPanel account, they use secured passwords on their WordPress account, and then their FTP account is password 123. And I've actually know of two cases, and one was a client of mine who shall remain nameless, and he was not on one of my servers where that was his FTP account, and he's wondering why the hackers went right through it like a sponge with holes.
Well, hackers are not just searching, port 80, 443, port 139. They're scanning them all.
Yeah,
Where are the open doors? We want to know which door is open, and then we'll figure out how to get in.
yeah, yeah. And believe it or not, as a host, email's a concern for you because you host email. Um, me being the smart soul I am, refuses to manage clients' emails, so they get one of two options: Office 365 or Google Workplaces, and I'm done because I don't want to be in that security game at all.
It's interesting outsourcing your email like that because they have the same problem a web hosting company has.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're hosting email, I could just sell email only and that'd be it. And I could just be an email service. It's
Yep.
still the same security problems. So you have to isolate accounts. You have to have all the proper firewalling and make sure your servers are up to date. You got to make sure everything's current. You got to make sure all the apps like Horde and Squirrel and what's the other one?
I forget the other one, but I usually use Horde if I'm doing
Something
webmail.
round
Tree.
round cube.
Yeah.
Those three. So again, the server has to make sure that when you're doing your updates, that software is being updated too. So it's the same set of problems with an email environment as it is for a WordPress environment. It's the same security parameters. It's the same rules.
Yeah.
A server is a server is a server. And if you don't have everything looked after, eventually somebody's going to find a hole.
Yeah, and I hate to tell people out there, and they should get this after 9 months of COVID, the hackers are all at home and bored right now. And they've got more time on their hand than ever before.
Yeah, they're
But
ramping up.
but the other problem is you now have countries and nation attacks as we've seen lately in the news. So this wonderful attack called Solar Wind, which is no question a nation attack. So there's a
Yeah.
little bit of both going on, right? So
There's a new thing. It's not new. It's about 7 years old, and it's a thing called Docker, and it's about it's in the DevOps circle, and it's Kubernetes, all this stuff, and a lot of the hosting environments are going over to this because it's even more secure than running just a straight bare metal or shared or VPS or all that stuff, because everything is going into containerization now, and that's way easier to secure than a public HTML folder.
yeah, public HTML folders awful to secure. Oh, by the way, all the more reason somebody shouldn't have a static HTML website anymore. Frankly, it's
Well,
hard to secure that at all.
it's puzzling. Static HTML, XHTML. I haven't seen just vanilla sites like that anymore. It used to be fun to make them because they were easy, and boy, you want to hack one of those sites, it's not hard at all. PHP stepped it up, and it's a lot more secure. I find PHP a little bit more fun, but at the same time, it's also can be cumbersome. But people aren't there. They don't want to learn how to code, and the ones that do are they're gearheads. They're geeks. They're the ones, the core people that want to learn how to. Why does this do that?
Yeah.
The general, the average person just wants something to work. They won't want to know how it works. They just want it to work.
Yeah. And frankly, and people say, oh, WordPress, yuck. I'll just go use Drupal. I'll just go use Joomla. Well, guess what, guys? Drupal and Joomla are still based on MySQL databases. They're still based on PHP. And if you spend any time in their forums, they have the same issues. So
Yeah, that's the same thing as WordPress. That's just another version of a CMS.
Yeah.
That's all it is. So WordPress took one path, Joomla took another path. They all take their own path and have their own way of doing things. Some of them it's harder, in other ways it's easier. WordPress is easier. It's probably the easiest out of the lot in my mind,
Yeah.
but because you can customize it from the ground up and it's open source.
Yeah. But it's funny because I'm on both the Drupal and Joomla security newsletters just from an interest perspective. And
Yeah.
WordPress will announce a problem, and 2 days later, out they all come. It's like,
Well, somebody's always leading and
yeah.
somebody is always following. So if you're not paying attention to who's out front and not responding to what they're responding to, then good chance that you're going to be making the news somewhere along the way.
Yeah. The other thing worth mentioning, and we haven't really talked about this, as people are going to like e-commerce, you got to be even more careful with security as far as I'm concerned.
Uh, um, e-commerce it's not even a thought process to me anymore because it seems to be becoming a default.
Yeah.
It's just automatically, it's becoming installed automatically by default. It's still the same security problems on every level because you're still talking about technology, you're still talking about software, and you're still talking about badly written software.
And you're still talking about people being involved, which are a big problem.
Yeah, well, people tend to be the weakest link, but having said that, they don't intend to do that. They're not doing it on purpose, unless they're the guys running the bots trying to find a way to get control of your stuff. I wouldn't want to work for a bank. I don't care what anybody says on a technology team. I have a friend who's a CIO of a bank, a chain of banks, and his headache, he says, is all he worries about now is security. How do we stop the hackers from hitting us? Like, you can't even redirect a hacker. You can only block them.
Yep.
After 3 failed attempts of trying to compromise your cPanel, your SMTP, your FTP, whatever, and then their IP gets blocked, but they just skip to another IP.
When I was in healthcare with one of Toronto's biggest hospitals,
yeah,
I used to sit with the guys who managed our firewalls, and I'd look at them and say, "What are you looking at?" And they'd say, "Look at this, 1, 2." And anybody who thinks that hospitals are immune, they get attacked all the time. And believe it or not, people do get through. You just don't hear about it because the media has a quasi. It's like the banks. I had a friend with one of Canada's biggest banks that was in security, and he'd say people got through every day.
Well, and what are you getting through to? Like, what are you reaching?
Yeah.
It's one thing to get in the first door. You got to get through multiple doors.
Yeah.
And you got to know what you're looking for. It's like even theft identity. You're still the weakest link. If your identity is being stolen, it's because you're not being secure enough about it. You're just freely giving your information away.
You're just being not smart. Yeah. No.
Yeah. So, again, I keep saying that security has, the same rules apply to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Even like, ID security, server security, WordPress security, website security. All the same rules still apply. They might look different based on the environment, but you still got the same problem.
No, it's true. And I think people just need to start to be a little more aware of how they do things and what they do.
Yeah, but they don't want to. They just want the easy way.
Well,
give me the easiest way.
That's why the easy way gets expensive one way or the other.
That's okay. Again, it's an opportunity for a security company like yours to show them a better way.
It's funny. In all the years I've been doing this, Owen, I've only had one site that's been on one of my servers or plans be compromised. And that was a client's fault. That wasn't my fault. I've had multiple sites that I've managed for clients on their stuff get compromised because they don't always do it. And frankly, backups have bailed them out more times than I can count. And
Yeah, and we all have those people. Like it's amazing. You'd be amazed how many people send me an email and I say, I have my website with so and so. Would you be willing to look at it? I think I've been hacked, and I'm going, well, I can't do anything about it. Like I don't have access to the server. I can't get in through the back door, kind of thing. I can't get in using WP CLI and make sure you're current and updated. And now with the WordPress toolkit, I don't need WP CLI as much because it's strictly WordPress, but WCI allows me to do other things than just WordPress. So.
No question. Thanks for your time, Owen. If somebody's looking for hosting, tell us a little bit about Billy Host, how to get a hold of you, and so on.
Well, billyhost.com is the web hosting company that I run. And if you just want to figure out how much I cost, just go to that domain. And then right on the homepage, there's 3 packages, and it tells you what I do. And those packages are constantly being revamped here and there as new services become available. And pricing is always, it's coffee money in my head. So not expensive. If you want to contact me via email, you can contact me through admin@billyhost.com or owen@owengreaves.com. I'm easy to find online, so.
That is true. Many a conversation about tech stuff while watching football games lately.
Yeah, and I've been around on the social networks forever, and so I can't hide anymore. I would like to now and again.
Me neither. Owen, Happy New Year, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for your time.
Happy New Year to you too, and thanks again.
Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. Rob Cairns again. I want a special thank you to Owen Greaves for joining me on today's episode. If you're looking for some great hosting, go see billyhost.com and check out Owen's web hosting offerings. I should tell you, this is not an affiliate. I don't get a commission. I just strongly believe in Billy Host, so check it out today. This podcast is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns, and my wife, Jill McLean Cairns. I love you both very much. If you want to reach me, VIP@stunningdigitalmarketing.com. Check out our website, stunningdigitalmarketing.com, or on Twitter @Rob Cairns. Please keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and make that business of yours succeed. Bye for now.